Boom. What is up, my friends? How you doing? I hope you're doing well. I'm about to be going live on Facebook as well. Sort of a late evening live video podcast if I can. I'm going to grab this link right here and I'm going to put it out on the Facebooks. Go to facebook.com/Timothy Locklear to follow along on Facebook if you'd like. Give me just a second here. Hope you guys are doing well this evening. Here we are. All right. We're going to do that, and I think we're ready to go. Just a minute here. I'm getting there. Hang on just a second. All right. Going live on Facebook and YouTube at the same time. Bingo, bango. I got a bunch of cool stuff coming up here soon. We're going to talk about that and more. Let's find it here. Just a second. I'm sorry. There's the three little buttons out there. Typically, there's the three buttons. Here, just a second. All right. It's peculiar that it won't work that way. I don't know why. While you guys are watching me go along here and try to figure this out, let's see. Let's try this. Still trying to get it to go live on audio. For some reason, it won't bring up that option, and I'm not certain why. Could be the way I have it set up. We'll see. There, live audio. Now we're getting ready to go. Now we're gonna do it. Here it goes. Bam, bam. Go sideways. Here we are, guys. We're gonna rock and roll. All right, here we go, guys. We are also live on YouTube. if you would like to watch. There is the link right there. Or you can go to timothylocklear.com and click on podcasts, and there will be a link to my YouTube channel, which you can just watch the video live. The intention of this is to have it in multiple facets so that people that would like to watch live can have that opportunity, and the individuals that like to listen late night can still listen, all right? So here's the deal. You can watch on YouTube, you can listen here. The reason we're having a podcast late at night is because I've noticed that there's a lot of my veteran homies and friends and compatriots, right, that spend a lot of time on the internet at night because they feel alone a lot of times. They have a difficult time sleeping. I know a lot of my veteran friends have a difficult time sleeping. And so I was like, you know what, why don't we invite some of these veterans to have a podcast where perhaps maybe because they're awake already, they might have an opportunity to engage because they're already up, because they can't sleep, because they're having a difficult time. So what subject should we discuss late at night when veterans are having a difficult time sleeping? Well, what better discussion than pain? We can talk about the various methods of pain, or the various forms in which we experience pain. You know, we as humans, it's amazing because we can really truly engage in our feelings in ways that not many other creatures are familiar with, right? It's a very specific and particular thing. Like not a lot of other creatures know what this kind of pain is, right? And so of the entire panel of things that we could be feeling, pain is one of the most difficult things that we experience. Pain is very difficult. And so because of that difficult pain, I know a lot of friends and homies, I know a lot of people that experience pain pretty regularly, pretty constantly, and do very little for it. They just tolerate it, they just deal with it. But then I also know other people who are dealing with pain who deal with it in a different way. They face it in a different manner. And the way that they face it is by using pharmaceuticals or by using alcohol or by using other means and methods that aren't necessarily helpful. And so that's a difficulty, that's a struggle, because you see these people having these difficulties, facing these problems and trials, right? And you know that you can help them, or you know you want to help them, you wish that you could help them, but yet for some reason you're having a difficult time explaining to them what you're feeling, how you're, because it's like, you at the same, you're like, well, they're experiencing some pretty significant pain, so it's really understandable, but at the same time you want to tell your friends, hey, man, I really don't want to see you taking all those pills. How can we help? What can we do, And so, I mean, I have this conversation all the time, pretty constantly, because I work with some folks who are, healthcare practitioners, and I hang out with people who are jiu-jitsu practitioners, and both of those people have a very close relationship with pain. Both of those kinds of people understand pain in a way that I could never understand. I know a lot of combat veterans who still walk around with their injuries with them, and that's a difficult thing for them to face. And so a lot of them use these things to help deal with their pain. We're on a live podcast, by the way. I just want to let you guys know you can watch live on the YouTube channel. The link is right there in the comments. You can listen here obviously on Facebook, or just go to timothylocklear.com. There's a link to both of them right there. The intention is not to promote a brand. The intention is to communicate ideas, to disseminate good information to the masses, that we can raise the consciousness of our fellow man. We can help people in a real capacity. Jason added on the live podcast on Facebook, he said, pain is debilitating and pharmaceuticals are more debilitating and ruins lives and families. Okay, that's a really I understand what you're saying, Jason, but like, here's the thing to think about. What about the people that are using pharmaceuticals now who are like, it saved my life? What about those people? Because that's the sort of conundrum that we face, sort of, right? It's like, yeah, I get it, that we want to be natural. We want to be all like, as natural as we can. We want to engage our problems in a real way. We don't want to fill our body with chemicals, right? We understand that. But those people who use those things, many of them that I know, are not engaging in other kinds of foolish, bad behavior in their lives. They're actually trying to help themselves, and they're finding that for some reason these pharmaceuticals help. And one of the things that the therapist, I'm going to take a drink of water, hang on here. excuse me. One of the things that the therapist that I do jujitsu with, he is not my therapist. He's just a friend who happens to also be a therapist who does jujitsu. He's a really great guy. He's a pretty high ranking belt dude. One of the things that he said was that a lot of times we use these pharmaceuticals to get to a place like a crutch, right? On a broken leg, we use them, or a brace, to get to a place where the patient can actually engage their problems, and then we slowly wean them off. And I said, well, right, but the problem there is, friend, that a lot of times that's not happening. A lot of times, yeah, we'll use the crutch like we need to, right? Like right now, my wrist, man, I had some unknowing younger belt than me in jiu-jitsu throw himself on top of me, and it cranked my wrist, and it's been killing me for like 2.5 weeks. It's really been difficult. So I've been wrapping it up, and I've been using this and using that and whatever. But the thing is those are just crutches. Those are just means to get by. The fact is I have an injury that is healing. And if I don't wrap it and protect it, it won't heal as efficiently. So the wrap is no different in any capacity, really, than the pharmaceutical. So I understand that we want to poop on pharmaceuticals, and I know that proclivity. I'm very familiar with it. I know it. I intimately understand it. We also have to stop and think, well, let's not just be quick to do that. Let's think about the full, there's like a broader spectrum of understanding when you really sit down and talk with a lot of these people. There's people who I know who suffer from chronic depression. And I was listening to Ari Shafir pretty recently on Joe Rogan discussing depression. And then I listened to the Three Mics on Netflix. I forget Neil Brennan, I think his name was. Looks like Trey's listening, and I think Trey likes Neil Brennan, right? You like comedians? I don't know. Somebody there's out there can Google this. But regardless, there's been this extremely large push to talk about depression. It's beautiful. It's beautiful, and I love it. I love it because more people need to have a better, deeper understanding of what the impact of these kinds of issues are, like depression, these mental issues, right? But don't forget there's physical issues. There's pain. There's legitimate physical pain. And a lot of times with pain comes depression, and very oftentimes depression can lead to physical pain. Sorry, Trey, I thought you did. I apologize. Jason added, pharmaceuticals, you end up needing more and more. The effects are terminal is the issue. No, I understand what you're saying, Jason. I do. And that is the thing, that they are chemicals. They can be harmful. But again, I really want to talk about the people who are using them to change their life positively. Because those are the people that I want to put at the forefront of the discussion. Those are the people that for some reason have been able to overcome this overwhelming addiction capability of these pills, right? For some reason, these people have been able to do that, and I would love to see if what they did could be applied to more people. Because I use them, pharmaceuticals, for a very long period of time with very negative effects, with very large amounts of side effects, ultimately leading to my wife and I deciding, you know what, we need to try to pursue some natural stuff. And as soon as we did, I lost buckets of weight. I started to want to get physical again. I started jiu-jitsu. I started doing hiking. I started I got a service animal to help me get out and engage more. And then it got to the point now, by the way, BorisTheServiceDog.com, service animal, I don't use them anymore. Not like that any longer. Very rarely. Very rarely do I use him. Why? Because he was a really amazing tool and still is. He's so helpful for me right now. I'm going through some therapy. I'm out of town, doing this, doing that. It's real difficult. It's real challenging. And so he was a really great tool for a while, right? He was a really great tool. But just like those crutches, just like the wrap on my wrist, when that wrist heals, I'm not going to use it anymore because then it would actually inhibit my game. It would actually it stopped me from having the capability to be able to do what I want to do, right? And that's where I don't see a lot of that discussion happening. Okay, you use the pills, but what now? I don't see that happening. And I think that what Jason asked the question, he said, is it that they don't know that other options exist? Correct. That's probably oftentimes it. A lot of people don't really know that there's other ways to engage these physical or emotional or mental issues. And that's part of the reason why I say the things I say, and part of the reason I say them so often and so frequently and so regularly is that if we engage these problems that our friends are having in a real way, like for instance, saying something to the effect of, I may not know the answer. I may not fully understand how to address your problem. I may not have the capacity to give you the answer that you need. I may not understand what you're going through, but here's what I know. I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to relent. I'm not going to back down. I'm going to keep being consistent. I'm going to keep relying on the previously communicated relationships we have, et cetera, right? I'm not going to just let this stuff go to the wayside. I'm going to keep talking. I'm going to keep engaging. I'm going to keep being active. Because then a lot of times what can happen is you guys can find the answer. You and your friend together can find the answer to whatever it is you're facing, whatever the problem is. But that's where a lot of people sort of drop off the radar there, is that I don't have that somebody. Well, I'm right here. Hi, my name's Tim Locklear. I've got this website where I help people like sort of engage these kinds of problems in a real and tangible way. It's sort of like what helped me, and I find that helping other people do it is an exceptionally therapeutic thing for me to do. And it really helps a lot of people. I've had a lot of people tell me they really like it. So I'm going to keep doing it as long as I find it to be effective. It's an exceptional means of sort of being honest and transparent in many ways for me. And it helps other people, right? But I'm not the only one. And there are a dozen other people. I'm certain of it. There are people that listen to this who aren't related in any capacity, and who in normal social times wouldn't necessarily be interacting, wouldn't be engaging each other. But this forum gives you the opportunity to say, hey, you know what? What about this? What about that? Well, how would I find information about this? And then you can begin you can begin Googling things. You can begin doing the research. You can begin going and finding these subject matter experts and saying, what do you do? Right? This morning, this afternoon after jiu-jitsu, I sat and listened to a 1-hour podcast from Tim Ferriss on his morning routines. And he had, and I haven't finished it all the way yet, but he had Jamie Foxx, he had Jocko Willink, he had the guy who made a very large brand. I forget what the brand was exactly, but he had these people on, and these are like, superstars in essence, and saying, what is it that you're doing that makes you effective? How are you engaging your mornings, right? How do you do it? How does it work for you? And then from there, they say, okay, I think I can apply that. I think I can apply this. So listening to those things is free. I didn't pay a dime to sit and listen to that podcast that's going to change my morning tomorrow. I didn't pay anything for that, but I found it because I researched. I found it because I looked around just a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Hey, Joel, what's up, man? Listen, the thing is that it's not necessarily about one cure-all, fix-all. It's about engaging the problems, the issue, in a full-on way, right? When I see some of the people that I see do jiu-jitsu, I am so encouraged, because many of them don't necessarily look like that would be their first go-to. Like, I think about guys like Joey Diaz. Dude's gigantic and he's doing jiu-jitsu constantly. He's doing it because he sees the value in it. He sees the money that it comes back to him is not actually money, but like physical and mental, emotional value. It's getting his tank filled, right? And that's Joe Rogan talks about that all the time, about the mental engagement with jiu-jitsu. Ari Shafir talks about it, going and sitting in the sauna and just stretching for 30 minutes straight. How powerful it can be. The releasing of those things. You know what I'm saying? Like that's value. And that value can only come when we appropriately look at our problems head on. You understand what I'm saying? That's the goal. That's the method. Appropriately looking at our problems head on in a real way, we can find and perhaps maybe make some real changes. So in the link up there earlier, I put a link to the YouTube channel that you can watch live if you wanted to. I'm going to put that there again. Hang on just a second. There it is. So again, what I to reiterate, one of the things that this therapist I spoke to said was, we use these pills or these pharmaceuticals to get to a place where the patient or the person dealing with the problem can actually engage the problem, right? So let's apply that to physical therapy. You break your knee in doing whatever, you get your knee fixed up, and then after your knee's fixed up, then you go through physical therapy, right? And you get back to using it again. You get used to it. You work into it. So let me ask you a question. Do you guys know of in any capacity where we see the real intangible sort of physical therapy that's happening for the mental patient, right? We see it happening for the physical patient, Person breaks his knee, gets a brace, goes through physical therapy. Everybody knows, hey, my knee's better. Oh, yeah, last year I tore my ACL, right? You hear the story pretty regularly, don't you? But why don't we see or hear similar stories about mental issues? Why is that? I wonder. So that requires some contemplation. We need to think about that. We need to engage that, because if we can really think about that in some way that matters, we might be able to affect change. If we talked as boldly and clearly and plainly about the issues we're facing psychologically and mentally, perhaps we would not be so ailed by them when they come up. Perhaps when they do actually come up and become an issue in some capacity, we're ready for them, and we're not ashamed of them. I can't understand why that is. Hold on just a second, guys. Here, I had to take a drink of water. I can't understand why when we're talking about addressing mental issues or psychological issues, why is it that we are unwilling to treat it in the same way? Why do we feel it or experience shame related to it? And why is it that there's this intrinsic sort of weakness that goes along with it? I don't understand why people view it that way. It's confusing. It's confusing. And so I would say that if we're going to take pharmaceuticals, if we're going to take pills, if we're going to take painkillers, if we're going to take things to mute the pain we're experiencing, if we're going to imbibe substances or engage in activities that necessarily mute our perception ability or in some way mock what's actually happening, in some way like mimic good experiences when you know you're experiencing bad. If in some way could, like in some capacity, you can like reverse it. If you could do that, that might have some benefit for a while. It might have some benefit for some in some capacity. But what you need to be prepared for is that that's not going to be a forever thing. But that's the problem, is that there's a lot of doctors, I shouldn't say a lot, I have experienced with healthcare practitioners who are willing to prescribe pharmaceuticals with no concern about an end point, but yet they would prescribe a knee brace with a clear point of ending, with a clear end point. You understand what I'm saying? Well, you're not going to need that brace in a year after your knee's going to be better, because it's only going to take you 3 months to rehab, right? But there's not even a discussion about that with pharmaceuticals, and definitely not a discussion about that when we're talking about mental issues, when we're talking about psychological issues. For some reason, when we're talking, not we, but when in the community, when we're discussing psychological, mental, emotional issues, we talk about them with permanency almost all the time. Almost all the time. That's peculiar, isn't it? That's a really odd way to approach a problem, to engage something, to assume that it's immediately in some way shameful that you're experiencing this thing, that you're some kind of a weakling because you are experiencing something that's happening up in your head, something up here. If you can't see up here, I'm pointing at my head. There's a video there. But the idea has to be that we're going to treat these two things the same way. We're going to treat psychological issues with the same value and appreciation we treat the mental issues, the physical issues. And then we're going to treat their treatments the same way too. So when we talk about painkillers, when we talk about pharmaceuticals, when we talk about methods or means of muting feelings, we have to be very intentional about that. We have to know what we're doing, we have to know why we're doing it, and we have to understand how it's going to work. And we have to have like an endpoint, right? A goal, accountability, those kinds of things. Accountability is essential. Knowing, hey man, I'm taking these things and I really don't like them, but I'm going to try to get off of them in 6 weeks. That's what the doc said, 6 weeks. Oh, 6 weeks, cool, awesome, man. I'm glad that you're going to try to come off of those in 6 weeks. That's great. It's great. But a lot of times that conversation isn't happening. A lot of times that conversation isn't happening in any capacity. It's never happening. And that's why you see these astronomical amounts of suicides. Because there's feelings of hopelessness. I'm going to be on these pills forever is what they say. I'm going to be on these pills forever is what they say. But yet, when somebody gets a broken foot, the feeling is never, I'm going to have a broken foot forever. It's, now my foot is broken. Oh, shoot, I'm going to be inconvenienced for a couple weeks, a couple months, a couple years, a couple days, who knows? But there's never a permanency when we're talking about a physical ailment from the practitioner's perspective, from the patient's perspective, from the individual's perspective, from any perspective. There's never a feeling of permanency, generally. In most cases, there's never that concern, right? But for some reason, when we're talking about mental issues, when we're talking about psychological issues, when we're talking about confronting these kinds of issues, there's this like, well, that's what it is forever now. Like you're on those pills forever now. Well, okay, maybe, but like why is that our go-to? Why is that like right where we go? Like, oh, you're that you have that now? That's part of who you are now? And when they try, so my buddy Kevin, I needed to reach out to you tonight, by the way, Kevin. I love you. I appreciate you, man. But like what he brought up to just now is actually important. So two things. Number one, I'm on YouTube. So if you guys want to watch live, you can. If you're into that. If you prefer listening, to keep listening on Facebook. The website's timothylocklear.com so that you can get to both of those if you're listening to this later for some reason. Back to what Kevin was saying. He said, the end date is a best guess, which is nothing in comparison. Correct. Yeah, that's it. That's it. Totally good. Great point. They give, if they give an answer, it's a blanketed, I don't really know. Who knows? Why? Because we haven't done the research. Why? Because we have chosen through financial gain of corporations or a variety of different reasons, whichever conspiracy view you kick into, that we've chosen that pharmaceuticals are the best method. When we understand and know across the board, every person you talk to, that natural medicine is almost always better almost all the time. It's proven. Just cruise your Facebook for 15 minutes. It doesn't take long to find a story about cancer that was cured with cannabis oil. It really doesn't take long to find one. I mean, are we really like at that point now where we're not talking about that? I mean, I don't understand. Like, I'm not a lunatic because that's a thing I see everywhere. Like, even if I wasn't like advocating for natural rights or discussing those things or in that community, it's everywhere, right? It's everywhere. Something Kevin said, he goes, the current model for diagnosis is fallible, 100% fallible, primarily related to, in my humble opinion, the idea that there's money involved. Remember, when we go to the doctor's office, we are currently at that point, we're customers at that point. We're customers. They are providing a freaking service. Remember that. Remember that veteran. Remember that human being. Remember that individual, whoever you are, for whatever reason you're going to that healthcare practitioner. He is providing you a service that you're paying for. And because of the current healthcare model system, a lot of people have been duped into thinking that they have no way, they have no say in that process. And that's garbage. That's not true at all. That's a big fat lie. Because it's important to ask these kinds of questions. How much does that cost? Ask that. Ask it often. Why do you need to do that? Ask those kinds of questions. Why? Because they need to be held accountable. They need to be held accountable. That's why. Because, and I say they, not as to demonize. These are many of these individuals that I talk about, these healthcare practitioners, are loving, kind, empathetic, not pathetic, empathetic, amazing, loving people. Many of them give two gigantic craps about humans and have probably done more for human beings than I could ever imagine personally, I'm sure. I mean that with no tongue-in-cheek, no nothing. I mean that honestly. But at the same time, it's really important to recognize that they are part of a system and a model that prescribes a substance whose leading cause of many of these substances is suicide, friends. So it's not about hype. It's not about promoting an idea or any other kinds of substance. It's actually about mindfulness, being aware. When we walk into the doctor's office, they are providing a service to us. We are kind, we are respectful as we would be in any other capacity, in any other place, at any other time. But we recognize that they are not the boss. What they say doesn't go. Do you understand that? If you took your car into the shop and your mechanic was like, you're going to need to do this and that. Well, how much is the this and that, mechanic? Well, I mean, we don't really have that information here. I know you're going to need it, so why don't we just go ahead and do it? And then, why don't we just go ahead and why don't we just take the thing and do the thing, and then we'll just bill your insurance company. Oh, well, but how much is it though? Well, you see, people don't usually ask that, so I'm not really sure. I mean, I wish I knew, but yeah. I'm honestly, like when you go to the doctor's office and you ask them how much does that cost, it's very often that they may say, I don't know. You understand what I'm saying? They may say, I don't know. Why not? Why would you tell me to do something that you know would cost me money, but you're unwilling to tell me how much it costs? This is a peculiar system that exists. So I'm not saying it's like an atrocious system. I don't like it. I think it's flawed in a variety of different ways, but it's there. It does exist. We do have it. So we are with it. We have it. This is what we have. So here's what we're left to choose to do. Nothing or something. The something should look something like this. Well, person who's a doctor, who's a practitioner, who suggested that I do this thing, I'm going to take your words into consideration, and then I'm going to go and I'm going to do some research. And when I come back, I think I'll have a better decision of what to do. Until then, I think I'm going to wait to fill that prescription that for some reason you wrote for me that you think I should take. Well, prescriptions are the best for this kind of depression, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but don't a lot of those pharmaceuticals cause depression and worse suicidal ideations than without them? Don't they? Don't they? Haven't the statistics shown? Well, yeah, but really, what's your options? You could just feel crappy. What? I could just feel crappy, or I could take the pills that we have shown evidence, not lunatics, right? This isn't for crazy people. It's very simple lunatics. Very simple, very simple. It's proven to show that it leads to suicide. It shows. That's the leading side effects of many of these pharmaceuticals designed to treat depression that leads to suicide. That's not crazy to you guys? And it's like, why are the people who say that's crazy the crazy ones? Why is it that the crazy ones are the ones that say don't take Adderall? Why? Why is that crazy? I don't understand. So no longer will the silent masses of the veterans be quiet. I can guarantee you that. The veterans will continue to shout out loudly and clearly as we can and as passionately as we can, free the plant. Because natural medicine should be accessible to all human beings. If we can grow it in the soil, we should be able to imbibe it. It's a very simple fact. So what are you saying? Make all drugs legal? Okay, well, let's talk about it. What do you mean when you say drugs? And what do you mean when you say legal? Let's have that chat for a quick second. Whoa, wait, what about meth? What about meth? Have you ever looked at the molecular buildup and breakdown of Adderall? And then have you ever juxtaposed that up against methamphetamine? Are you saying meth should be legal? Are you saying you don't know what Adderall is? Ooh. And the crowd goes silent. Because we see a hole in their method. We see the dishonesty. And we see through their crap. We see, honestly, that they're attempting, if in all intents and purposes, to feed us a bill of goods. Not they. There is no they necessarily. But the individuals that would necessarily suggest that for some reason we should imbibe a substance that has been proven to lead to suicidal ideations as a means of treating depression with suicidal ideations. It doesn't make any sense. That's like, I don't even want to try to build up a ridiculous analogy to try to say what that's like, because you guys are really smart people. You humans get this. So I'm not saying experience the pain and just, suck it up. It's not what I'm saying either. I'm saying let's address the pain with something and let's mitigate the side effects. Why the crap would you not want to do that? I had somebody tell me, if it's a good medicine, it'll work whether your mind's into it or not. Okay, That's reasonable. I wouldn't say if it's a good medicine. I would say if it's a, if it's a particular class of medicine, it's going to work whether you are mindfully aware of it or not. Yes, that's true. There are various substances that are similar. That whether you are like, I'm ready to take this and ready to feel this or not, you take it and you feel it. But there's also some other things that can work well and even exceptionally well when you are mindful of them. And many of those things that fit into that category are free and really easy to do. Many of them. Most of them, I'd say, are free and easy to do. So the challenge becomes, well, how am I going to do that? How am I going to manage to do that? Well, okay, so you could go to my website if you wanted and go to some old podcasts. I've got some cool stuff. Go to Joe Rogan, Google how do I better myself, Google Tim Ferriss, Google Zig Ziglar. I mean, the list goes on and on. We can Google all kinds of stuff. I can put you, depending upon what city you're in, I can put you in contact with some humans who might give a giant crap about you enough to help you, take you out and show you the outside of the world, outside of your four walls, and maybe take you on a hike or do some jiu-jitsu or some yoga in the sauna or something crazy, something fun, something that'll engage your mind and your brain and your body. Just to see first. First, I want to see what's going on in here. And then if I know and I calculate the risks, okay, then I'll imbibe the substance over here with the possible negative side effects. But by and large, I'm going to try to do these natural things as long as I can. That should be our mantra. We should try to grow our food in our dirt. We should try to grow our medicine in the same dirt. We should try to do that if we can. Not because we're pompous, not because we're pretentious, not because we have some point to tell, not because we have something to say, other than the fact that human beings should actually have the privilege, right, and freedom to choose, I want to engage my body's feelings this way, meaning I feel this way right now, i.e. painful, difficult, hardship, whatever it may be. I feel this way. Well, step one is feel it. Wouldn't you say that there's so many people in this world that run from that? They run from that immediate shock of, it's her, oh God, this hurts. This sucks. I don't want to do this. I'm going to run from this. Give me a beer. I need a joint. Give me some pills. That's what they say a lot of times. Most humans say those things. Whether verbally or mentally or emotionally, or physically, they say them with their actions. They run from pain. Let me encourage you. If you're feeling physical pain, the first step you should perhaps consider is some mindfulness practices. Perhaps that may sound difficult to understand. I understand pain. I experienced some of it in my life, and I had some pretty difficult migraines that I faced for many years, some pretty bad physical pain, some other difficult issues. But I chose to embrace them in a different way. For a very, very long time, I took very large doses of very, very destructive pharmaceuticals on my body to control and mitigate symptoms. And it worked for a long time. I mean, it sort of worked. I destroyed relationships, burned bridges, went from career to career to career to career to career, but ultimately found and discovered the ability to become a chameleon. That's what they did for me. They gave me the ability to just sort of switch from person to person because I never really knew who I was, because I was constantly muting the sounds that were coming from the muted sounds, from the sounds that were muted from the muted. And I was just fingers in the dam, man. That's all it was. Percocet to Percocet to Trazodone to lorazepam to diazepam to what was it? Let's see, loperamide, sumatriptan. I mean, I could keep going. There's a whole list of them. And I'm not just one, you guys, for real. There's a long list of veterans who have an even longer list of pharmaceuticals they've been on at one time, mind you. This is important to know. At one time, they were taking all these things at one time. So who the hell knows what they were really feeling? Who knows? They didn't, for sure. And the doctors who were, and I'm just going to say this is going to be really conspiracy-ish, and I'm all right with that. It's going to sound like I'm an advocate for something, okay? I'm all right with that, how this sounds. Those doctors who were making money off of the pharmaceuticals that they were encouraging those veterans to take were terrible. Those were terrible decisions. Those were terrible decisions that were made to allow and to continue to allow so many veterans to imbibe so many pharmaceuticals at one time. It is unethical. It is garbage. It is bad. It should not happen. It should be talked about as often and as loudly as possible. But the veterans aren't the only ones. Did you know that? Did you know there's an entire mass community? Did you know there's an entire community of human beings who are not veterans, who are also imbibing buckets after buckets after buckets of pills? There's a big difference between the veterans and the veterans who are imbibing them. The veterans and the civilians, right? Civilians oftentimes are having to pay for it out of either their pocket or their HMO's pocket, which means big business, guys. Big business for big pharma, big business for big industry, big business for lining the pockets of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of human beings who are making a buck somewhere along the line while those pharmaceuticals are being literally pumped into the bellies of these humans. Some of them veterans, some of them not. Some of those pills are going to the Veterans Affairs hospitals. Some of them are just going to civilian clinics. You don't have to Google far to find stories about people overdosing on pharmaceuticals, or people having adverse effects, or people having suicidal ideations, or the numbers of people who have taken a firearm and gone and killed. The numbers of people who have gone, first of all, who have taken a firearm and gone and killed someone, just someone, that's an astronomically high number. Not like in a murder. I'm not talking about like in war or self-defense. I'm saying, I don't like you because you're funny, you're brown, you smell bad, you look this way, you smell that way, you live on that side of the street. I'm on this side of the street. Where are you from? That side of the street. You are? Bang. That's been happening for a long, long time. But this recent rise in these individuals who go and they take these firearms and they go and they kill lots of numbers of people, that's a new thing. That's a newer thing. But you know what's common among all of them? I'm not the first one to mention this. You guys know exactly what I'm talking about. Every single freaking one of them is on pharmaceuticals. Brand name pharmaceuticals. Big name pharmaceuticals. So why the hell, look, y'all are willing to go out and burn your stupid Nike shoes because somebody did something here and that and the other. Why not take your pharmaceuticals and go out in the middle of the street and pour them out into a big giant can and say no more and have like a big display of that? Why? Well, because these pharmaceutical companies are doing horrendous things. And let's just be honest. I don't know how many deaths Nike is involved with. I don't know how many deaths have come as a result of Nike, but I know how many deaths have come as a result of Pfizer. I do know that. And this is not propaganda. This isn't hype. This isn't. It's not. Yeah, I do have a very slanted position, sure. But I'm willing to consider reason and logic. If someone is willing to make a very strong case why more and more individuals, veteran or not, should be imbibing large amounts of chemically created pharmaceuticals, why that's a good thing? Well, it keeps people happy. It keeps people better. Really better. Really? Okay, let's engage that for a minute. Most people are unwilling, but if you are, I will. Let's go there. Let's talk about good or better for just a moment. Because what you call good, I call muted. I call dulled. I call deadened and often worse. That's what I call it. So I don't know what you call good, but I've seen people who are on pharmaceutical grade mind-altering substances. I've seen the results long term. I've seen the results of people who don't come off of them, who don't have a chance to get off of them, who end up ending their own, unfortunately choosing to end their own life as a result of the overwhelming inability to sort of wrap their mind around what's going on in their brain, and the chemicals are only making it worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And these people are trying their best to engage the problem in a real and tangible way, and they're going to their doctor and they're saying, please, I want help, and they're being given pharmaceuticals, which are making their problems worse. Or they're at best just dulling the pain. And then they have, okay, that's fine. Look, if you break your leg, yeah, your pain might be dulled through pharmaceuticals. But you know what else you'll get? You'll get physical freaking therapy. Your doctor will engage the physical actual problem with some kind of means of mitigating the issue in a real way. by a licensed practitioner of physical therapy. So why then do we not engage other problems in the same way? Why are we allowed to give out pharmaceuticals that alter the brain and mind's chemicals, but we're unwilling to engage those same problems with the same fervor that we would a physical problem? Doesn't seem fair. And not only does it not seem fair, it seems inconsistent. And it also is crazy to me. It's an interesting, it's a remarkable concept that you can be the one that brings that up, that mentions it, and you're the lunatic. You're just the raving maniac talking about another issue. That's an interesting place to be in. So, I would say, I know many people whose lives are saved, who could tell their story of how pharmaceuticals actually saved their lives, how they couldn't survive without pharmaceuticals, and I too am one of those stories. I am here today as a result of pharmaceuticals. There are a variety of number of different infections and injuries that I have incurred, that I could not be alive probably without some of the pharmaceuticals that I was given as a means to help my body. So I will not say pharmaceuticals are bad. That's not what I'm going to say. What I am saying is that we really need to approach the issue with a mindful nature. We need to engage it. We need to know it. We need to understand it. And we need to see very clearly, very plainly, that we are the boss here. We are in the driver's seat with this issue. We will not back down from our role and responsibility in this whole project of getting better. You understand? That's what we're saying to our doctors. That's what we're saying to our practitioners. You understand? That's what we're saying. So, we are no longer going to take the back seat in this position of healthcare. We're going to take a forward seat. Listen, you guys are amazing and you're beautiful. If you've listened this long, it's because you care, probably, most likely. I appreciate you very much. I'm going to log out for now and head on to bed. Please visit timothylocklear.com. It's got a website, some cool contact information, some YouTube links, and those sorts of things. So please check it out. Maybe share this with a friend who's struggling with some pharmaceutical addiction, or maybe some things that they otherwise wouldn't want to experience. Maybe share this with somebody you know, perhaps a veteran in your life, perhaps somebody else. Anyway, you guys know who needs to hear this. You're beautiful, and thank you so much. Last but not least, I always end every podcast the same way. Don't kill yourself, guys. You matter. You matter a whole hell of a lot, and I'm glad you're around. So please stick around and don't take a permanent decision for a very, very temporary problem. We'll find the best way we can to deal with what you're facing, but don't kill yourself. All right, guys, I love you. Thank you so much.